The explosion came without warning. One moment, Private Elara Tevan was sprinting alongside her squad mates in a desperate retreat across the muddy fields of Nexus 9. The next, she was airborne, her world consumed by searing heat and deafening sound. She landed face first in cold mud, the metallic taste of her indigo blood filling her mouth. The ringing in her pointed ears made it impossible to hear anything else. When she tried to push herself up, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Where her right leg should have been, there was only a ragged, bleeding stump below the knee. BC. Reality of what had happened struck her like a second explosion. She had triggered one of the proximity mines her own battalion had planted days earlier to slow the human advance. "Mevka!" she screamed in her native tongue, the call for a medic. Disappearing into the chaos of battle. Through dust-filled air, she glimpsed the retreating forms of her squad, their silhouettes growing smaller as they continued their withdrawal, unable or unwilling to turn back for her in the minefield. Elara's silver-flecked skin, normally luminescent, under her homeworld's twin moons, was dulled by mud and blood. She clawed at the earth, trying to drag herself forward, but each movement sent fresh waves of agony through her body. Her training had covered battlefield injuries, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of watching her own lifeblood seep into alien soil. In the distance, human artillery lit up the purple sky. Their forces were advancing. In minutes, they would overrun this position. For a young Valerian like her, barely 19 cycles old, and on her first deployment, being captured by humans was a fate her commanders warned was worse than death. "Help!" she cried again, this time in broken standard, the human tongue she'd been taught to understand enemy communications. Her voice grew weaker as shock set in. "Please, anyone." Through pain-blurred vision, she saw movement, a figure in dark combat gear approaching from the human side of the battlefield. Was this her end? Would a human soldier put her out of her misery, or worse? Corporal Donovan Hayes had heard the mine detonate and seen the flash through his tactical visor. Through his scope, he spotted the fallen alien soldier, small-framed, clearly young by Valerian standards, and critically wounded. His comm crackled. "Hayes, maintain position. We're advancing in 5. That's a hot zone. Mines everywhere." He keyed his mic. "Command. I've got a wounded combatant at grid 7-3, requesting permission to attempt rescue." "Negative, Corpsman. That's a Valerian, and that's a minefield. Hold position." Donovan looked again at the alien girl, her silver-flecked skin now ashen. As blood loss took its toll. He'd become a medic to save lives, not to let someone die alone in the mud. "Sorry, Command," he muttered, switching off his comms. "Gonna have some reception issues." He unclipped his field scanner and tossed it forward, watching as it detected and marked 3 mines in his path with tiny holographic warnings. Carefully, placing each boot where the scanner indicated was safe, he moved deliberately toward the wounded alien. When he reached her, Elara's 4-fingered hand weakly raised a small blade in defense, a gesture born of desperation rather than threat. "Easy," Donovan said, slowly raising his empty palms. "Medic, doctor, help." He tapped the red cross symbol on his shoulder. "I'm here to help you." Her large, pupilless eyes, entirely silver with flecks of darker grey, widened in confusion. She lowered the knife slightly, but watched him with primal fear as he slowly opened his medkit. "This is going to hurt," he warned. Though unsure how much standard she understood, he applied a compression field to the stump of her leg, stopping the blood loss instantly. Her scream echoed across the battlefield as the field cauterized the key wound. I know, he soothed, quickly injecting her with a universal painkiller. "But you'll live." As the medication took effect, her rigid body relaxed slightly. Donovan worked methodically, cleaning and properly sealing the wound, checking for other injuries, and setting up a portable vital monitor. Through the distant explosions and weapons fire, he remained focused solely on his patient. "I'm going to carry you out of here." he explained, packing up his kit. "My name is Donovan." He pointed to himself, then to her. She hesitated, then whispered, "Ilara." "Good to meet you, Ilara," he said with a gentle smile as he carefully lifted her slight form. "Let's get you somewhere safe." As artillery fire intensified around them, he began the dangerous journey back across the minefield, every step potentially their last. Ilara looked up at the human's determined face, the enemy who had risked everything to save her, and felt the foundations of everything she believed begin to shift. Donovan's combat boots sank into the mud with each careful step, the added weight of Ilara making the trek through the minefield even more precarious. His scanner beeped softly, mapping a zigzagging path through death planted beneath the soil. The alien in his arms weighed surprisingly little. Valerians had evolved on a low-gravity moon, giving them naturally slender builds despite being nearly human height. "Stay with me, Ilara," he murmured, noting her half-lidded eyes. The universal painkiller was keeping her comfortable, but it also induced drowsiness, dangerous in her condition. "Talk to me. How old are you?" She blinked slowly, processing his standard. 19 cycles, she whispered, her voice musical despite her weakness. "First, deployment." "Just a kid," Donovan muttered. At 32, he'd seen too many young soldiers, human and alien alike, broken by this senseless conflict. A sudden burst of weapons fire kicked up mud just meters away. Donovan ducked behind a rocky outcropping, shielding Ilara with his body. The front lines were shifting. They were caught between retreating Valerian forces and advancing humans. "Hayes!" A voice crackled through his reluctantly reactivated comm. "Your position is about to be overrun. What the hell are you doing in no man's land?" "Medical evac," he replied tersely. "Coming in on the eastern approach. Hold fire in that sector." "Medical evac of what exactly? Our wounded are accounted for." Donovan looked down at Ilara, whose silver eyes were fixed on his face. "A patient," he said firmly. "Just have a medical berth ready." The radio silence that followed spoke volumes. Night fell quickly on Nexus 9, the planet's rapid rotation plunging them into darkness. Donovan activated the minimal lighting on his helmet, enough to see by without making them an obvious target. They couldn't risk the main path back to the human medical station. Too many eyes watching, too many questions. "We're taking the long way," he told Ilara, adjusting her position in his arms. "Why help enemy?" she asked, her silver-flecked brow furrowed in confusion. Donovan navigated around a steep ravine. "I don't see an enemy," he replied simply. "I see someone who needs medical help. That's my job. Your people say Valerians are monsters, warmongers. And what do your people say about humans?" Her silence was answer enough. They traveled through the night, stopping occasionally for Donovan to check her vitals and administer fluids. During one such stop, huddled beneath a rocky overhang as rain began to fall, Ilara reached out a four-fingered hand to touch his face. "Your skin," she said with quiet wonder. "So warm." Donovan smiled. "Valerians run cooler, right?" "Something." "About your homeworld's distance from its sun," she nodded, surprised by his knowledge. "You know of us?" "I've treated a few Valerian POWs. Plus, I like xenobiology. Understanding different anatomies helps me be a better medic." A distant explosion illuminated the sky, reminding them of the war raging around their small moment of connection. "Your battalion will punish you," she said softly, "for helping me." "Let me worry about that." Dawn broke with an eerie beauty, the light from Nexus 9's blue sun filtering through dust-filled air. They were less than a kilometer from the human medical station now, but this would be the most dangerous part. Ilara's silvery skin and distinctive features would immediately mark her as Valerian. "I need to hide you," Donovan said, removing his outer tactical jacket and wrapping it around her. "Pull this hood up. Keep your head down." As they approached the perimeter, Donovan's sergeant spotted them, his face contorting in disbelief as he realized who the medic was carrying. "Hayes, have you lost your damn mind?" he hissed, stepping close to block others' view. "She needs immediate medical attention, Sarge. She's lost a leg. She's also lost her right to medical care when her people started bombing civilian colonies." Ilara blinched at the harsh words, though she couldn't understand them all. "This isn't about politics," Donovan insisted. "It's about medicine. The Geneva Conventions still apply to alien combatants." The sergeant stared hard at Donovan, then at the wounded alien. Finally, he sighed. "Back entrance. I'll create a distraction at the main checkpoint. But Hayes, this is on you. All of it. Understood?" As the sergeant walked away, Ilara whispered, "He angry? He's concerned," Donovan corrected gently, "but he's helping us." Minutes later, they slipped through a service entrance into the bustling medical facility. The chaos of a field hospital worked in their favor, doctors and nurses too busy saving lives to question another wounded soldier being carried in. Donovan found an unoccupied corner in the overflow ward, setting Ilara down on a cot. "I'll be right back," he promised, squeezing her hand. "Don't talk to anyone." As he turned to find supplies, Ilara caught his wrist with surprising strength. When he looked back, her silver eyes held his. "Thank you," she said, the words carrying the weight of a universe of difference, bridged by a simple act of compassion. Donovan nodded, something unspoken passing between them, something that neither the battlefield nor their different worlds had prepared them for. "You brought a Valerian combatant into my medical facility without authorization." Major Keller's voice was dangerously quiet as she confronted Donovan in her cramped office. The field hospital's chief medical officer was known for her brilliance as a surgeon and her strict adherence to protocol. "She would have died, ma'am," Donovan replied, standing at attention. The Geneva Protocols were extended to include sentient alien species after first contact. "I'm aware of the protocols, Corpsman." She pinched the bridge of her nose. "And I'm also aware that saving her has made you a target. Half the soldiers here lost friends to Valerian weapons. With respect, she's 19. She didn't start this war." Major Keller studied him for a long moment. 3 days, she finally said. "She gets treatment for 3 days, then military intelligence will want to question her. After that," she shrugged, "not my department." "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't thank me yet. You're responsible for her. Any trouble, and you'll both wish I'd turned her away." When Donovan returned to Ilara's bedside, she was awake but disoriented, her silver eyes darting fearfully around the busy medical bay. Human doctors and wounded soldiers moved about, some casting curious or hostile glances at the alien patient. "Hey," he said softly, approaching slowly to avoid startling her. "How's the pain?" She relaxed visibly at his presence. "Less." "Your medicine?" "Strong. Good." He pulled up a stool beside her. "I've got permission for you to stay and receive treatment, but we have limited time." He explained her situation as simply as he could, watching comprehension and fear alternate across her expressive features. The luminescent specks beneath her skin, a Valerian evolutionary trait allowing them to communicate through subtle light patterns, flickered rapidly in distress. "After questioning execution?" she asked bluntly. "No," Donovan assured her quickly. "Humans don't execute prisoners of war, but POW camps aren't pleasant places." A human nurse approached with a tray of instruments, her expression professionally neutral. "I need to check the wound," she told Donovan, not addressing Ilara directly. "Her name is Ilara," Donovan said pointedly, "and she understands more standard than you might think." The nurse, her badge reading Fletcher, gave a small nod of acknowledgement. "I need to check your wound, Ilara," she repeated, this time looking at the alien. As Fletcher worked, Donovan noticed Ilara watching the organized chaos of the medical bay with increasing interest. Her eyes lingered on the advanced medical equipment, particularly on a soldier being fitted with a temporary prosthetic leg. "We have similar," she said, following his gaze. "Not as good." "Prosthetics?" She nodded. "Valerian one's heavy. For show only, not for function." An idea began forming in Donovan's mind. What if I could make you one? A functional prosthetic leg? Her silver eyes widened. "Why would you?" "Because you deserve to walk again." Over the next 2 days, Donovan split his time between his regular duties and Ilara's care. When off shift, he scrounged the facility for spare parts and materials. A carbon fiber panel from a damaged exosuit. Hydraulic components from decommissioned medical equipment. Neural interface adapters that, with modification, might work with Valerian physiology. Word spread about the medics project. Some offered help. A technician provided specialized tools. An engineer suggested design improvements. Others made their disapproval clear with cold stares or muttered comments as Donovan passed. Ilara watched with fascination as the prosthetic took shape. During these hours they talked, haltingly at first, then with growing ease as her standard improved and Donovan picked up phrases of her language. "Your people and mine," she said one evening as Donovan calibrated the knee joint of her new leg. "Fighting for 30 years. Why? Resources, territory, the usual reasons people find to kill each other," he replied, then paused his work to look at her. "What were you told about us?" "That humans destroy everything they touch. That you would exterminate us if you could." She tilted her head. "But you saved me." "And what does that tell you? That truth is more complicated than war allows." On the 3rd day, as promised, 2 intelligence officers arrived. Donovan was ordered to leave during the questioning, despite his protests. For 3 hours, he paced outside, his unfinished prosthetic clutched in his hands. When they finally allowed him back in, he found Ilara exhausted, but physically unharmed. "They asked about troop movements, deployments," she whispered. "I told them truth. I was new recruit, knew nothing important." "Did they believe you?" "I think so." Her fingers brushed against his as he checked her vitals. "They said I go to camp tomorrow." Donovan's hands stilled. "The prosthetic isn't ready. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me." That night, Donovan worked feverishly, fitting components together under the dim light of his portable lamp. Around him, the medical bay grew quiet as the midnight shift began. Nurse Fletcher appeared at his side, wordlessly handing him the specialized neural interface adapter he'd been trying unsuccessfully to requisition. "I don't agree with this war either," she said simply, then walked away. Near dawn, he gently woke. "Ilara, it's ready," he whispered, holding up the completed prosthetic, a sleek, functional limb that would attach just below her knee. "We need to try it now before they come for you." Her eyes shimmered with emotion as she sat up. "Even if it works, what difference can it make now?" Donovan carefully positioned the prosthetic against her healed stump. "I don't know what happens tomorrow," he admitted, "but today you stand." As the neural interface connected, Ilara gasped. Part pain, part wonder. The prosthetic hummed to life, calibrating to her unique physiology. Slowly, with Donovan supporting her weight, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed. "Ready?" he asked. Her answer was to push herself upright. For one breathless moment, she swayed, then steadied. One step, another. Her face transformed with joy as the prosthetic responded to her thoughts, moving as naturally as flesh and bone. "I stand," she whispered, tears tracking silver paths down her cheeks. "Because of you, I stand." In the soft light of early morning, human and Valerian stood face to face, both changed irrevocably by what had passed between them. Donovan reached out hesitantly, brushing away her tears with his thumb. The space between them seemed to shrink. each drawn to the other by something stronger than the forces that had made them enemies. "Ilara, The medical bay doors swung open. Military police stood silhouetted against the rising sun. "Time to go," their commander announced. The moment shattered like glass. The POW facility was a stark contrast to the medical bay, all straight lines and surveillance designed to contain rather than heal. Yet, for Ilara, it was surprisingly tolerable. Her status as the Human Medics Project afforded her small privileges, a private room instead of the common barracks, extra rations, and most importantly, continued physical therapy for her new leg. The official reason, documented by Major Keller herself, was ongoing medical study of xenobiological response to human prosthetic technology. The real reason stood 6 feet tall and arrived 3 times weekly wearing a corpsman's uniform. "Bend and straighten," Donovan instructed, kneeling beside Ilara as she exercised her prosthetic limb. "Good. Now rotate the ankle." 2 weeks had passed since her transfer. Each session, under the watchful eye of the guards, they maintained professional distance, patient and therapist. Only in brief moments, when the guards were distracted or during necessary physical contact, did they allow themselves to acknowledge the growing connection between them. "The balance is better today," she noted, walking a straight line across the small therapy room. Her accented standard had improved dramatically. Another medical curiosity that justified Donovan's frequent visits. "I recalibrated the gyroscopic stabilizer," he replied, watching her movements with a critical eye. "How's the neural interface? Any phantom pain?" "Less each day." She completed her circuit and turned to him. "You didn't have to come today. It's your rest day," he smiled. "I wanted to." A guard cleared his throat loudly, reminding them of his presence. During these sessions, they exchanged more than medical information. Through careful conversations, ostensibly about her rehabilitation, they shared their worlds. Ilara described the floating cities of her homeworld, where buildings drifted on magnetic currents above violet oceans. Donovan spoke of Earth's varied landscapes, the concept of seasons still fascinating to someone from a tidally locked moon. "Snow," she repeated after him one day, trying to imagine frozen water falling from the sky. "I would like to see that." "Maybe someday," he said before he could stop himself. The guard frowned at the implication. As weeks stretched into a month, Ilara's facility privileges expanded. She was permitted into the common areas, where other Valerian POWs regarded her. With curiosity and sometimes suspicion, the prosthetic leg marked her as different, touched by human technology. "Traitor!" an older Valerian male hissed in their native tongue as she passed his table in the dining hall. "Taking the enemy's charity." She stopped, balancing easily on her new leg. "Is survival treason?" she replied coolly. "They're not what we were told." "They've already changed you," he warned. "Soon you'll forget who you are." But Ilara wasn't forgetting. She was expanding. Each interaction with Donovan and the other humans who now treated her revealed new complexities, contradictions to the simplistic narratives of war. Meanwhile, Donovan faced his own challenges. His commanding officers questioned his obsession with the Valerian patient. Fellow medics noted how he volunteered for every POW facility rotation. Rumors spread. "You're compromising yourself, Hayes," his sergeant warned during a rare shared meal in the facility cafeteria. "People are talking. Let them talk. I'm doing my job. Is that all it is?" Donovan didn't answer. The truth was more complicated than he could admit, even to himself. What had begun as medical duty had evolved into something he had no name for, something that made his heart race when she mastered a difficult therapy exercise, something that kept him awake at night, wondering what would happen when the war eventually ended. During their 6th week of therapy, a breakthrough came, not in Ilara's physical recovery, which was progressing remarkably, but in the walls they'd built between them. "Try again," Donovan encouraged after a particularly difficult balance exercise left her frustrated. "Focus on transferring your weight smoothly." "I've been trying for an hour," she snapped, uncharacteristically sharp. The guard had stepped out momentarily, a rare moment of privacy. "What's really bothering you?" Donovan asked quietly. She looked away. "I received news. My home world. There was an attack on the southern colonies. Many civilians dead." "Ilara, I'm so sorry. Your people did it." "Not me," he said softly. "Never me." "I know," she whispered, her anger dissolving. "That's what makes this so difficult. You make it impossible to hate humans, Donovan." She looked up, her silver eyes intense. "You make me feel things I shouldn't feel for an enemy." The air between them charged with unspoken emotion. Donovan took a step closer, close enough to see the quickened pulse at her throat, to feel the slight coolness that radiated from her skin. "I don't want to be your enemy," he said, voice barely audible. Her forefingered hand reached up to touch his face, a mirror of that moment in the rain weeks ago. This time her touch lingered, exploring the alien texture of his stubbled jaw. "What do you want to be?" she asked. His answer was to lean forward, closing the final distance between them. Their lips met tentatively at first, an exploration of the unknown. Then, with growing certainty, her skin glowed softly in response, the bioluminescent specks beneath the surface pulsing with emotion. The sound of approaching footsteps forced them apart moments before the guard returned. But something fundamental had changed. The barrier between healer and patient, human and alien, had irrevocably fallen. As Donovan prepared to leave that day, Ilara caught his hand. "They're transferring prisoners next week," she said urgently, "to a permanent facility off-planet." His blood ran cold. "How do you know?" "The other Valerians." "There are rumors." "I'll find out what's happening," he promised. "And Ilara—" He squeezed her hand. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." But as he exited the facility that evening, Donovan was greeted by his commanding officer with news that would test that promise to its limits. "Orders just came down," the officer informed him. "You're being reassigned. Shipping out tomorrow. Front. Line Medical Corps needs experienced combat medics. Sir, I can't leave yet. My patient is no longer your concern, Corpsman. War's escalating. We need you where you can save our people." As the reality of separation crashed over him, Donovan realized the depth of what had grown between them and what they both stood to lose. Dawn broke over the POW facility, casting long shadows across the compound. Donovan stood outside the main gate, his rucksack packed for immediate deployment, arguing desperately with the facility commander. "One last therapy session, sir, to ensure the prosthetic is functioning properly." His voice remained professional, despite the storm inside him. "The research data is invaluable." Commander Ortiz studied him with shrewd eyes. "You have 30 minutes, Corpsman, not a second more." Inside, Ilara was already waiting in the therapy room, her posture rigid with anxiety. When Donovan entered, her luminescence flared briefly before she controlled it, a Valerian equivalent of his racing heart. "You've heard," she said simply, "reassignment orders." He closed the door behind him, acutely aware of the guard watching through the observation window. "Frontline Medical Corps." "When?" "Transport leaves at 0800. "Ilara." He moved closer, keeping his voice low. "They're transferring prisoners to off-planet detention facility." Her silver eyes widened. "Separated, then?" "Not if I can help it." He pretended to adjust her prosthetic, using the proximity to outline his desperate plan, one born of sleepless night and impossible odds. There's a supply depot near the south perimeter, minimal security. I've arranged for the camera feed to loop for exactly 3 minutes during tonight's shift change. He pressed something small and cold into her palm. Key card. It will get you through the inner doors. And then, I have a contact in the civilian settlement, former medic. He'll hide you until I can get back. Desertion, she whispered, understanding the magnitude of what he proposed. They'll imprison you if caught, only if they catch me. He squeezed her hand. This war won't last forever. When it ends, if it ends. When it ends, he insisted, I'll find you. The guard tapped on the glass, pointing to his watch. Ilara stood, testing her prosthetic one final time, a performance for watchful eyes. Your world is not mine, she said, loud enough to be heard, but you've given me back the ability to walk in it. The therapy is complete, he replied formally, gathering his equipment. Then, much softer, South Perimeter, 2100 hours. That night, as darkness settled over the compound, Donovan packed his medical kit with practiced efficiency in his barracks. His hands moved automatically while his mind raced through contingencies, potential complications. What he was about to do would end his military career at best, earn him a prison sentence at worst. Yet the alternative, boarding that transport, leaving Ilara to disappear into some distant detention facility, was unthinkable. At precisely 20:45, he signed out for a final equipment check at the medical supply depot, a plausible excuse that bought him the freedom to move around the base without immediate suspicion. The night was overcast, Nexus 9's 3 moons hidden behind thick clouds. Perfect conditions. He made his way toward the rendezvous point, his medic's badge granting him access through checkpoints that would have stopped others. At the supply depot, he checked his chronometer, 20:55. 5 minutes until the security loop he'd arranged would create their window of opportunity. His contact, a sympathetic communications technician who'd lost a sister to the war and saw no point in its continuation, had promised 3 minutes of digital blindness. 2100 hours. Time slowed to an excruciating crawl as he waited in the shadows beside the depot's service entrance. 2101. Nothing. 2102. Had she been caught? Had his plan been discovered? 2103. A soft sound, the whisper of a door opening. Then Ilara was there, her slight form silhouetted briefly before she slipped into the darkness beside him. He fought the urge to embrace her. This way, he murmured, leading her toward a maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the perimeter fence. They moved silently, her new leg functioning perfectly, allowing her to keep pace with his urgent stride. The tunnel was narrow and damp, designed for utility conduits rather than human passage. They crawled through darkness, emerging 300 meters beyond the facility's outer perimeter. Only when they reached the cover of dense vegetation did Donovan finally turn to her, taking in her appearance properly. She'd managed to trade her prisoner's uniform for civilian work clothes, too large for her frame, but far less conspicuous. You did it, he breathed, allowing himself to cup her face gently. We did it, she corrected, her skin illuminating softly beneath his touch. But now what? Your plan has us hiding, running. Is that a life, Donovan? He glanced toward the distant lights of the civilian settlement. It's a beginning. They moved through the darkness, 2 figures from worlds at war, choosing each other over the divisions that had defined them. The path ahead was uncertain. A human deserter and an alien fugitive would find few welcoming havens, but they had already overcome impossible odds. Tell me again, Ilara said as they paused on a ridgeline overlooking the valley. About snow. Donovan smiled, taking her hand. It falls silently, he began, covering everything in white. It makes the world quiet and new. He looked at their intertwined fingers, 4 digits clasped with 5, a perfect imperfection. I'll show you someday, I promise. Behind them, alarms began to sound at the facility, their absence discovered. Ahead lay unknown dangers and uncertain shelter. But for this moment, suspended between what was and what could be, they stood together, a testament to the truth that compassion might yet prove stronger than conflict, and that sometimes salvation comes not from grand peace treaties, but from one hand reaching out to another across a battlefield. "Ready?" he asked. Ilara took a step forward on her new leg, a leg built by human hands for a Valerian body, and nodded. "Ready!" Together, they descended into the valley, leaving the war behind them. Two souls from different stars, choosing to write their own story beyond the battlefield's edge. 3.7 Sonnet.